Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I know it's been a while since Jackson and I have been on, but we have a lot to talk about today regarding Candace Basketball and their roster for next season. We have two new portal commits to talk about, plus a decommitment from a high schooler that just occurred last night. So without further ado, let's evaluate this roster a little bit, coming right up here on The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. All right, Jackson, let's go ahead and start with the most recent news that came out just last night. LaBaron Philon has requested his release from his national letter of intent at the University of Kansas. It looks like LaBaron Philon will not be a Jayhawk next year. He's going to explore his options. What are just your first thoughts, Jackson? I know you're a huge LaBaron Philon fan.
Dude, I am. I'm so sad about this. I was so excited for LeBaron to get to campus and see what he was going to do. He's such an electric player, just something that, like the short time that we had Remy, like we just haven't had a really electric guard in a while, one that can take you off the dribble and pull up. And I mean, even before DeJuan, when Devon Dotson was there, he was more just super quick and fast and could get downhill. LeBaron has a full bag, and I was so excited to watch him in a Jayhawk uniform. But, the Hawks have been busy in the portal, and LeBaron is a guy who should absolutely be starting wherever he goes. He is that talented, and that was not going to be the case at Kansas. There's just too much talent ahead of him. So it was, honestly, it's probably the right decision for him.
Yeah, I mean, LaBaron Philon, I think, is a better prospect than Elmarko Jackson coming out of high school. And I believe that he's actually ranked lower than what Elmarko was ranked coming out of high school. But we all know about this last class, and everybody talked about it for the NBA draft. So, yeah, LaBaron Philon, he's a good player. I'm really sad to see him go. He averaged 12 points, 4.5 assists on the EYBL circuit, shot 44% from three-point range. He's pretty much everything you want in a point guard. He distributes, he scores. It's sad, Jackson. I was really wanting to see what he could do at Kansas, but I'm thinking he'll probably end up somewhere in the SEC now, somewhere in Auburn, Alabama country.
Yeah, down there. I mean, he's also a great defender. He's super quick. His arms are really long. Like he's a tough guy to go by. And if you were to ask me if going into next year, it's LeBaron or Elmarko, I'm taking LeBaron Philon probably 9 times out of 10 in that. So that's more of where my disappointment comes in, is if one of those two were going to leave, I would rather it have been Elmarko, but you never know. Elmarko's already been in the system for a year. He doesn't have to learn anything. Maybe it'll work out for Kansas.
And you know about them Bill Self freshman to sophomore jumps.
Indeed. Exactly.
Could be pretty legit. Well, anyways, LaBaron Philon, he is out. He is not going to be on Kansas's roster next year, but Kansas has added 2 huge splashes in the transfer portal. 2 players who both averaged above 15 points per game last season at their respective schools. We got AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo, the Lawrence native Zeke Mayo, coming to Kansas. Where do you sit, Jackson? Where do you sit with this? Because I think AJ Storr is probably the best scorer, guard, just absolute go-get a bucket wing that you could get out of the portal. And Zeke Mayo has a proven track record of chopping threes, which is exactly what Kansas needs.
Oh, Zeke Mayo is a shot maker. That's what he does. He's got his go-to move is a little step back going to his left side, and he can hit that thing from anywhere. He had a couple against Iowa State in the first round of the tournament for South Dakota State. He's a guy that you can go to. We talked about earlier in the year, Kansas had no like grenade shooters where it's under 5 seconds in the shot clock. Someone needs to get a shot off. And it just it was like, can we get it to Hunter? Can he throw up some hook shot? Zeke Mayo is a guy who can score in any situation. Clock running down, offense breaks down, defense rotates well. He can hit contested shots. AJ Storr, for Kansas fans, he reminds me a lot of Wayne Selden, because he's kind of like a thicker guard, and he's big and he's physical, super athletic, just like Wayne was. I think Wayne was a little bit better of a 3-point shooter, but AJ Storr has shown stretches of 5, 6, 7 games where he shoots at a very high percentage from 3. 17 a game at Wisconsin, 17 a game in the Big Ten is nothing to
That's
roll your eyes
legit.
at. I
That's
think
legit
that is
stuff right there.
very, very legit. So I think Kansas just got immensely better on the offensive end. Even losing LeBaron because of these two commitments, that's still a net positive.
Yeah, both these commitments are absolutely huge. Both, I think, are going to be day one starters for this Kansas team. Just starting with Storr, he's just so athletic, Jackson. Like
Yes.
watching
Oh my gosh.
all those dunks that he had this past year, some of the stuff he was doing. Like, when is the last time that Kansas just had a guy like that, like a Josh Jackson, a Wayne Selden? Like,
Yep.
it's
Literally.
it's been a little bit. It has. I mean, maybe you could throw an Ochai Agbaji type guy in there with some of the dunks that he was throwing down, but yeah, that dude can absolutely hoop.
Ochai was more graceful. AJ is
Yes.
going to punish you.
Yes, exactly. He's more power instead of grace.
Yeah.
Zeke Mayo. I mean, what is there not to love about Zeke Mayo? He's from Lawrence. He's from the area. All the fans, I guarantee you, are going to gravitate and love him. And this is kind of the thing for me, a lot you might kind of have in the back of your mind like that. Oh no, that Nick Timberlake from last year coming from a place like Towson.
Yep.
He averaged, set 15, 19, whatever Timberlake did at Towson. He comes here and he doesn't replicate it. This is why I think Zeke Mayo is different. Firstly, he has NCAA tournament experience. He's played at South Dakota State. I'll tell you what, they're not getting a top seed. So they're playing the top seeds.
Yes.
He has played in the NCAA tournament against really good teams. 2 years ago, he scored 11 points against Providence, and that's 2 years ago, Jackson.
Yep.
And then this past year, he scores 19 points against Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State was one of the best defensive teams in the country last year. He shot 5 of 11 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3 against Iowa State, who simply does not allow 3-pointers. Zeke
the proof is right there.
Different. It's a lot different than Nick Timberlake. I will tell you that right now. He's going to be a stud. He's going to be a stud.
We've already seen it against real competition with real stakes at a high level. It's something Timberlake didn't have. Towson never went up against a 2 seed when he was there, right? South Dakota State does. The Colonial Conference, I think, is one of the worst in terms of like the non-power fives. And South Dakota's that's a decently good program, I think. The South Dakota State, North Dakota State, I think they both do a really good job. Obviously, football
the Summit League isn't great by any stretch.
No, I'm not like gassing up the Summit League, but I'm saying North Dakota State, South Dakota State football powerhouses, right? The basketball pretty good at those places too. North Dakota State just produced Grant Nelson, who was in the Final Four with Alabama this past year. So this is you're completely right. I completely agree with you. We've seen it. This is not going to be a Nick Timberlake thing. The numbers are eerily similar, which is why it's kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. But I think Zeke Mayo is going to be more ready to go coming in than Timberlake was.
Yeah. Bill Self is never going to make a Nick Timberlake type of mistake again. Trust me. We will never see a Nick Timberlake type player at the University of Kansas again. That was something to see last year for sure. That was something to see. All right. Well, kind of moving on now. Just talking about what this roster, what it stands as right now, and then we're going to kind of move into what we think it will end up looking like, the final roster. And first, we kind of have a disclaimer here. So last episode, we talked about the roster, and we kind of misinterpreted the penalties, the IAR penalties, the self-imposed penalties for Kansas. We were under the impression that Kansas had a reduction of 3 scholarships for each of the last 3 years, 2023, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26. That is not the case. The self-imposed penalty is a total of 3 scholarships reduced over those 3 years. So I have the understanding that Kansas will have 13 scholarships this year and 12 next year, or vice versa. They have 1 scholarship from that 3 that they have not used yet as the penalty. Technically, last year, Kansas did play with 10 players, with Clements being redshirted, so technically 9. But I believe that the dismissal of Morris ended up counting towards a scholarship spot still. So that's why KU has the just 1 scholarship that they have to get rid of in the next 2 years. But yeah, I'd assume that Kansas doesn't get that other scholarship back because of Morris being dismissed. But anyways, with all that being said, Kansas should have 13 players this year, 13 players, and then 12 players the next year, or 12 players this year, 13 the next year. So only one more scholarship to be reduced.
More than we had last year is kind of the point, I think, because
Yes.
it's all very confusing. They can still choose what they want to do, but more depth than last year is what's highlighted.
Kansas had 10 players last year, and one of them was a red shirt. Kansas had nine players available to play last year. This year, that is not going to be the case. So everybody can kind of take a deep breath there. Kansas will have depth. Players like Zach Clemens, Jamari McDowell, Elmarko Jackson, who we thought had to hit the portal, they no longer have to hit the portal. They can stay on the roster. They can develop. So now let's kind of talk about where this roster stands right now.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines for making all of our picks and predictions, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money to get it. This is what you have to do to make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the rest of the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and the thing that I love the most, a nice little parlay boost, as well as a ridiculous array of prop bets for anything that you could possibly imagine betting on. From odds on getting to the Final Four to national championship futures, I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app. Use that code FIELD and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod in any podcast app. Like and share the YouTube videos that you enjoy. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
So, Candace Basketball, right now they have signed or announced returned DeJuan Harris, Zeke Mayo, and AJ Storr both signed. KJ announced his return. I'm going to put in Hunter Dickinson, okay? He still has not made his decision. Hunter Dickinson still has not made a decision, but he's expected to make it soon, and I would be very shocked if he is not returning to KU.
Agreed.
So that is 5. We got Riley Kugel, who is actually still not signed and also rumored to potentially be leaving. So that would be 6 there. Clements, McDowell, Elmarko, and then the 2 high schoolers, Rakis and Flory. That would make 11. We also expect Rylan Griffin to be making his commitment to Kansas soon. And then Johnny Furphy is kind of the question mark right now. He retained that eligibility, but let's be honest, he's probably gone to the draft. That's kind of where we're sitting right now, Jackson. And with what I said, this is kind of what I expect the roster to be. It's going to be DeJuan, Zeke, AJ, KJ, and Dickinson. I think that's going to be your starting 5. I expect Riley Kugel not to be on the roster next year, as reported by Mike Vernon. I expect Rylan Griffin to commit, so he'll be on the roster. And then you got the Clements, McDowell, Jackson, Flory, and Rakis. With Griffin, the top 5, that's 11, right? And then I would say another portal addition would make 12, and Candace will use the scholarship reduction. That's the team right there. What do we think?
Okay. I like it. That team's going to win a lot of games, hopefully. I completely agree with your starting lineup. The Riley Kugel thing's weird because, like, I feel like even if Griffin does commit, I feel like there's still room for him and still minutes for him on this team because I think that he would play above Jamari for sure and probably Elmarko as it stands right now. I think he would get minutes over both of those guys, but maybe with the addition of Griffin, Bill's really trying to push Elmarko to really, really develop, and there's no room for Riley Kugel. So It's 50-50 on that. I still think it would be shocking to me if all of Zach, Jamar, and Elmarko all came back. But it's kind of looking like that's what it's going to be right now. That's just so different than what you would have thought as soon as the season ended with how the rest of the season played out. But if Clemens is half of anything that the people who went to practice last year have been telling us, I'm more than happy to have him come off the bench next season. And we both like Jamari, I think, and Elmarko, the ceiling is whatever it is. We're going to find out. Florian Requise should be here to stay. I'd be shocked if they release their signings. LeBaron is a guard. It's way different for him, but Flores and Requise, super excited for them. Hopefully they stay the course and come to Kansas. But yeah, Rylan Griffin is, I think, I would be shocked if he didn't commit.
He's the final piece, Jackson.
He's the lock. It's here. We got it. We got the piece. And yeah, I think I've been thinking Furphy's gone for like 4 months now, so I still think that.
My thing, just looking at the expected roster, which is again DeJuan, Zeke, Mayo, AJ Storr, KJ, and Dickinson as your starting five. You got Rylan Griffin in a portal addition off the bench. You got Clements, McDowell, Elmarko, Flory, and Passmore. That is our 12 here. What I like about this scenario is so many people who can just do all sorts of things. You have ball handlers. Zeke Mayo can handle the ball. DeJuan Harris can handle the ball. AJ Storr can handle the ball. Elmarko Jackson off the bench can handle the ball. You're going to have some ball handlers there. And I think whoever the portal addition will be another guard who will also be able to handle the ball. So you have that. You have your bigs. You have Hunter Dickinson. You have Zach Clements. You have Flory. I think Kansas is going to be fine in terms of its depth there. And then KJ, if you want to run a 5-out look, you got him. You got shooting galore on this team. Just shooting everywhere. And really right there, that's just a recipe for success. My biggest concern with this team is defense right now. Like looking at this roster, that's my biggest concern. And we know that Bill Self usually figures that out. So I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic for next year. If this isn't the preseason #1 team, I don't know who is.
I think I am loving Bill going offense over defense. You look at the Final Four teams. UConn, they had a really good defense, but they were just the best team ever, maybe. Alabama, not even top 100 defense. Not even top 100. Purdue, for being, quote-unquote, the best team all season other than UConn, they weren't even top 20 in defense until the Final Four. And NC State, are you kidding me? They're not even a top 30 defensive team. Like, the whole defense wins championships, I think that is expired in college basketball. And I think we've been seeing
only rebuttal to that because they were elite defensively in the tournament. NC State.
Who was?
NC State. I would say they were the only like defensive minded team in that final.
I was more of like they got hot at the right time and the vibes were so good that we see it every March. But like even like Kansas's team was more of an offensive team than a defensive team. That Baylor team was heavy offense. That played Gonzaga, who was heavy. It goes back 4 or 5 years now. It's offense. This team has it. What I'm excited for, if we're going to see a little less KJ minutes, maybe AJ Storr can run the 4, and you can go Juan, Zeke, Griffin, AJ with Hunter down low. That's a pure 4-out 1-in of 3 guys who can really, really score. The best facilitator in America, and now probably the best big man in America was Zach Edey gone.
Yeah, I honestly, if I were Bill Self, that would probably be my starting lineup, and I'd bring KJ's energy off the bench. But I don't see that happening. Like
no. That's a fun.
Love to dream.
That's a fun. KJ gets 2 early fouls lineup. That's kind of what that like. That's a save KJ. Like that's not going to be the starting lineup. KJ's going to start, but I'm most looking forward to that lineup. I'll say that.
Yes, that lineup will be just it'll be like watching Alabama play last year. Like literally, it would be pretty similar.
I don't hate it.
This is another thing, Jackson, that really sticks out with me from this team. If Kansas gets Griffin, if Dickinson comes back, which we both expect to happen, that top 6 of Harris, Storr, Adams, Dickinson, Griffin, and Mayo, Jackson, has 7,042 career points scored at the collegiate level in 618 games. All right. A, that's a lot of points. B, that's a lot of games. On average, for those 6, with that career point total, those games, that's an average of 11.4 points per game on average from KU's top 6 players. That's approximately 68 points per game, which honestly, in the Big 12, could probably win you some games.
Absolutely.
This
Just
team
that.
is going to be really good, Jackson. This might be one of the best Kansas teams that has ever been.
I mean, I think the mix of experience and youth, you also look back at previous champions. Who was really important for UConn? Yeah, it was Cam Spencer
Castle
and Klingon and Tristan Newton, guys who had been there, but it was also Stephon Castle, a freshman who came in. And guys like a Rakese Passmore is going to be big energy and hopefully big scoring off the bench. Guy like Flory is going to bring the house down with some lobs he's going to catch this year, absolutely postering guys. Like, there's your mix of youth on top of the 6 guys you just mentioned. The thing that sticks out to me more about that is the 618 games. That's your top 6. They've played that many games. There's really no excuses.
Most of them are starts.
There's no excuses not to be in the Final Four next season. I don't think. This is an extremely early overreaction in April 24th. Or April 25th.
Real quick, Jackson, I'm just going to book my San Antonio.
Are you going to book it? Yeah, I can't afford it, sadly. I don't know what it costs, but I know I can't afford it.
Well, we got it booked. We're going to San Antonio.
No, but we're good. Where is it?
San Antonio, yeah.
Kansas Jayhawks are pretty comfortable playing Final Four in San Antonio.
They are. Yeah, it's the top 6, Jackson, right?
Well, except for
McDonald's All-Americans, 2 of them, 1 in their second year. And then you still have guys like Clements, McDowell, program guys. I'm just
Passmore, Passmore wasn't a burger boy, but has jolted like 70 spots in the top 100 rankings. He is now a legit prospect.
Yeah. We'll really find out if this roster is going to stay, what we think is going to stay by May 1st. That is whenever the transfer portal closes. So everybody keep an eye out for that May 1st date. We actually will probably do a podcast episode on May 1st just to talk about everything. But just one last thought before we go, Jackson. What were the weaknesses of last year's team? What were the 2 things we talked about all season long for why Kansas was bad last year?
Shooting and depth.
You're looking at this roster right here, Jackson. What are the 2 things that is super, super abundant on that roster?
I see 1, 2, 3, 40+% 3-point. Actually, I see 5 40+% 3-point shooters, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 potential guys who've started college basketball games in their careers. So sounds like some shooting, sounds like some depth.
Shooting depth. Yeah. It's crazy. It's almost like Bill Self is a good coach and he learns from his mistakes, and he takes a team that was really bad in those 2 things last year and now has a team that is really good in those 2 things. That's what we want to leave with, y'all. Bill Self is a gangster. He's really good at his job. Kansas is going to be scary next year. It's going to be a lot of fun, Jackson.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
All right, y'all. We will see you next time here on The Hum. It's looking like probably May 1st is going to be our next episode.
Good, yes.
You get some good news later this week, which we are expecting to. So we'll have something out if Griffin commits. If there's any other movement, we'll have something out.